All right, we'll call the meeting to order. We have a roll call, please.
Ms. Stone?
Here.
Mr. Paskalakis?
Here.
Mr. Kostadakis? Ms. Ramsey? Mr. Lee?
Here.
Ms. Register? Mr. Phillips?
Here.
Mr. Chapin?
Here.
Chairman Webster?
Present. Okay, I think we have a quorum barely. Do we have a motion with respect to the minutes from last meeting?
So moved.
Do we have a
Move for
second?
approval.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Approved unanimously. Public comments. John? Anyone else for public comments? Thank you.
John Nicholson, 413 North Grandview Avenue. I gave you all each one of these. We could have had this on Main Street. They wanted to do Main Street. We don't have a project manager for Main Street area, Main Street CRA. So everything was available for downtown, so they pushed it on downtown. We should have Turkey Rod Run in 2 weeks on Main Street, but we're not going to have it. There is no reason why we're neglecting Main Street that we know of. The city says that they will not give us a project manager. We have $1.3 million in our budget. They have no money for project managers, yet they do have project managers. We have plenty of money for a project manager, and we don't have one. We could do a lot more for Main Street and the CRA if we had a project manager and somebody pushing Main Street. Secondly, this is just one night's garbage in one store on the boardwalk. All right? I picked it up one Friday night, Saturday morning, just grabbed it all up because they take all their tables and chairs away and they leave all the trash behind. So I'm asking you again to do a regulation if we're going to rent out public parkages and sidewalks, that whoever rents it has to clean it up at night when they close. Because it's,
You're saying that the,
Apparently, he's accusing me of not cleaning up after ourselves.
right.
You know, I'll tell you what, I'll go back, what day was this? I'll go back on the videotape and take a look at it.
Friday, I wanted to talk to you. Would have it 2 months ago, so it's like the middle of summer. All right?
Friday when?
July,
You picked up that garbage Friday, July, and you kept it with you.
because you didn't have your meeting,
Okay.
and then I was out of town. I'm commuting back and forth from Miami. All right?
My video recall, the video only holds back for a month, you know?
But this has been an ongoing problem, and I've asked for it for 5 years. Timmy said, take pictures, so I just grabbed it. This is what was on there one night, just in front of one building. So I'm asking you to think about a project manager. Then I could tell him, stop by, here it is, before the cleaning crew comes by. They don't clean until like 8, 10 o'clock, so there's plenty of time for someone to come by and take a look.
to find in the morning then?
Every morning, yeah. Okay?
I'll get down
Thank
there and
you.
check it out.
All right.
Thanks. No other public comments, correct? Okay, we'll move on to items 5 and 6, I believe I've requested a continuance, correct, Reed?
That's correct. Should ask if they want to come up and make a statement.
They don't.
If
I
they-
don't. Mr. Mitchenberg is here. I believe I got a request in writing asking for a continuance. He's nodding his head in agreement. If the board would like to make a motion, and
Can we have a motion to continue items 5 and 6?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor? Pass unanimously. Thank you.
Continue this next month.
Is it being continued to a December meeting, and do we know the
December
date?
2nd Wednesday, I believe it's the 11th. Let's check it out.
What?
December 11th.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Okay, item number 7, proposed amendment of the South Atlantic Redevelopment Plan.
Okay. I think I'll do this without a presentation. You have a request that was part of your motion, October 9th, that was to ask that the restaurants, the type A2 and the A3, those are the fast food drive-in and drive-through restaurants, that the prohibition that we have on the west side of Atlantic Avenue, the south side of ISB, that prohibition be removed. And that requires both a land development code text amendment and, because it's also in our redevelopment plan, removing that section from the plan. What's happened so far is that we took a text amendment in front of the planning board on October 24th, and they have voted 6-1 to approve that text amendment. Now it goes to the city commission at the in the December meetings. So by the end of December, as a part in concert with and sequenced with the Hard Rock hotel project, those approvals for their PRD for what they're asking for should be an incentive agreement in that second meeting in December. And so by the end of December, we should have all of the items up for consideration and approval by the commission.
Very good.
Okay.
The one question I have concerning this is, I believe, so you're not referring to any part of the east side of Atlantic Avenue, right?
We're not speaking of anything, when you say east side,
But like,
No.
the one specific property I'm thinking about is the Wendy's, okay? So
no, this is only south of ISB in the South Atlantic redevelopment area. So
Oh, so you're not doing any
this has
text
nothing to do with
amendment?
Main Street. There is no prohibition in Main Street redevelopment area. This is just the South Atlantic redevelopment plan and the land development code that speaks to the South Atlantic plan where it disallows
There is a
the drive-through
prohibition.
restaurants.
I thought there was a prohibition in the redevelopment plan for the.
No,
for
there's
the
there's
Main
a
Street.
well, there's an issue with the Wendy's that we've already addressed, so that that will not be an issue right now.
So
with the
re-
current- with
so
that particular
The
facility.
redevelopment plan allows in the Main Street redevelopment area, A2 and A3 restaurants.
There was a grandfathered use, and when we went through the approval for, you recall, with the Wendy's, and we had approved the landscape plan around there, we had addressed the fact that was already something that with the drive-through, we would consider leaving that in place. So that's grandfathered in at this time.
Okay, but if, let's say, the Shell's Restaurant that's on the corner of ISB and A1A, if they wanted to do a drive-through restaurant, if somebody came along, they would not be able to develop that property.
Not at this time.
Okay, well, while we're doing this text amendment, wouldn't it makes, could we expand it to include the west side of A1A? in
I'll
this-
make, let me do this. With it, we can't really back up and do that part as well. We've already been through the process with the planning board. We need to move this along because it was specifically for this, related to the Hard Rock. If you're wanting to address the Main Street redevelopment area, we'll take that separately, and since we're also moving along with the Clarion rewrite, I would suggest that that's the best place to handle that for future revisions.
Do we have consensus as that would be a prudent thing to be able to have some drive-throughs
Yeah.
on that side? I think so. You have Starbucks, things like that, and we can just direct read to follow that course.
First of all, I would say, from a planning standpoint, as staff, I'm going to be more concerned about future drive-throughs in what will become more of an urban area in parts of, we got to be a little careful when we get into these pedestrian areas. Whereas I don't have a problem where we have a major arterial and it's primarily auto-oriented. But as we get closer to where we're going to have a lot of people moving around, I would suggest we not have them everywhere, be my comment.
Okay.
Okay,
Reed, why don't we put it on the agenda and we can bring it back for discussion and you can give
Okay.
your input and maybe we can look at some parameters.
Sure.
A certain lot size or things like that. Just a blanket prohibition seems unreasonable, and on a real small parcel seems unreasonable. Maybe there's some nice middle ground that we think will work, so there's some flexibility with it.
Yeah, and with the lack of left turns on A1A to begin with, I don't see it being much of a problem, having the pedestrians and the drive-through restaurants. I mean, it's, because you're saying the pedestrian flow and then the automobiles turning into the drive-throughs, but I mean, the automobiles turning into the drive-throughs will mostly be right-hand turns because, there's not that many curb cuts on A1A.
Well, I like the idea of coming back and having that discussion with you, and we'll give that some more
Yeah,
thought
no, that's fine.
with those comments.
Okay,
Okay.
very good. Okay, does that finish your,
No, I just want to make it clear that I've kind of taken you through the Land Development Code part of this text amendment process. There's also this CRA plan, and that's what's before you tonight, is that this is an amendment to our redevelopment plan. And I gave you the background for the text amendment, just so you knew what was coming before the
did we get something on
The
that?
planning.
'Cause-
yes, there were two packets provided
Oh, was that
to
the
you.
supplemental package?
That was a
Right.
supplemental packet. And I can tell you that this whole process that we haven't done in, a year and a half, 2 years now. The last time we did this, it was with the E-zone master plan. And we have to get it in front of the redevelopment agency, the CRA. And we're going to do that on November 20th so that they can then give us the okay to send out notices to the taxing districts. That's part of the process. And then in December, again, lined up with the Land Development Code text amendment, that plan amendment for the South Atlantic redevelopment plan will go through as well. Unless you have any concerns about this, that's the process we'll take.
Okay. Any questions?
For the article here, it was basically a business which had been open operating a minimum of 250 days. That's for the whole redevelopment area, or is it just for Main Street? Because I can probably tell you at least, it's the first one on the supplemental package. I can tell you at least 12 different properties and leases in the redevelopment area, ISB, A1A, northbound to Main Street, that stay closed year-round.
Randall, are you reading from the Bike Week
Yeah.
guidelines?
Oh, wrong thing.
Okay.
Oh, sorry,
It's all right.
jumped ahead.
Yeah. We're going back to the, to what we're talking about right now, I would tell you that there's also in there a provision that says that restaurants are, the A1 restaurants, which wasn't part of your motion, it says that those are encouraged. So you'll see where I've actually struck that out as well, because the way that it's worded, it's basically saying that those are the only types of restaurants that are encouraged in that area, and it infers that the other types are not. So we struck that as well. We thought that was just redundant.
Okay,
Okay.
very good. Any other questions on this topic?
That we
Okay. And because of my feeling like death warmed over and our lack of people, I'd like to ask we make a motion to move the special events to the December meeting.
Wait, are we?
Yeah, we need to
I
back
move
up.
for-
Oh, I'm
Approval of
sorry, we have
item
to approve
7.
something on that?
Yeah, we need to get a motion and
Yeah.
approval, and you
Oh,
may have public comment on that.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
I
I'm
move
sorry.
I move for approval of item 7, proposed amendment of the South Atlantic redevelopment plan.
I'll second that.
All right. Do we have any public comments on item 7 dealing with the proposed amendment? Dan?
Dan Harshaw, 115 Lenox. I have a concern here that we are opening up a can of worms unless you clarified it, and we're not opening a can of worms for the south side of ISB and the west side of A1A, because that's going to be the only area in the redevelopment area that you can have a fast food restaurant now. The north side of ISB, you will not have a fast food restaurant. You can't have one in Main Street. So why do we want fast food restaurants on ISB when we're working on a streetscaping to encourage a beautiful thoroughfare where now we're opening up where McDonald's, Burger King, Taco Bell, anybody with a drive-through liquor store can have a drive-through liquor store in the entrance to A1A. Am I not correct?
Well, you can't have a liquor store.
Well, we have them now. Why can't you just put a window there?
No, you can't have a packaged liquor store.
Well, but I'm saying that the thing is, the redevelopment areas, the intention was not to promote McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's. We had them 15 years ago, and they closed because there was no demand for it. I'm not sure if the demand's going to come back, but that's not the thoroughfare and gateway that we want. My thing is, if the person, which is Bayshore, wants this to happen, have it included in their PCD or PUD or whatever they're doing for a site, for a spot zoning in that parcel on the west side of A1A at Lenox, because I think that's what they're asking for. Why should this community suffer for one project? We don't want fast food restaurants on ISB, or we don't want them against single-family houses in Lenox Park. We just don't want them, and we don't need them.
Can I ask you a couple questions?
Yes.
What is it about the drive-through restaurant? Is it the traffic? Is it the noise?
It's the
or-
traffic, it's the noise, it's the hours.
Okay, now.
And it's the vision, because this community has no standards. We don't ask for standards like Port Orange and New Smyrna. Do you think New Smyrna would allow a McDonald's on Flagler Avenue? Absolutely not.
Actually, in the state of Florida, I can't even think of a city that does not allow.
Well, then why can't you have them on the north side of ISB then?
Wait, before
Are you guys
got-
going to change
before-
it?
Before you got here, we made an issue of that, and we're going to bring it up before.
But is that what the ISB correlation or corridor people want? Is that what you guys have been working on for 10 years? So we can encourage McDonald's and Burger King on the thoroughfare coming to the beach? No, that's not what we want. I don't know one resident in that whole area that wants a Burger King as they walk to A1A. They want a Starbucks. But just like the Downtown Redevelopment Board did, we approved it where you can have a drive-up window, not a drive-through. You can do a drive-through on US 1, but you can do a drive-up on Beach Street. So if somebody wants to put an Outback Steakhouse in on A1A, you can drive up, but it's not a drive-through. Am I not correct? Mr. Berger, am I not correct?
You can have a
Drive up,
You can have a drive-up general restaurant.
right? You can have a Starbucks with a drive-up window on Beach Street, but you can't have a drive-through. And I think that our redevelopment board should match. Why should they all be changed? Because a developer comes to town and says, I want to do this, so you change a whole redevelopment zone for one person. And we're not sure they're even coming yet.
I haven't
What-
heard anything of the ISD corridor, I mean, A1A, other than Starbucks. But the vision plan I've seen, ISD corridor beachside is gonna be exactly opposite of that.
What do you mean? What's going on?
From a division, from what I'm understanding from the board, is I don't think that's what we're looking for. I don't think we're looking to put
You're open it right here on the south side of International Boulevard.
restaurant.
You can't have them where the Subway, you can have it where Subway is, but you can't have them where the old Denny's is. That's what you're asking for. You're asking for fast food restaurants on the south side of ISB.
Let me
And it wraps all the way to Bostwick.
Let me clarify. The word is abutting. We're only talking about these properties, and where they were prohibited was abutting on, where those properties actually were abutting. That is, actually, those lots had to be on and facing the ISB and Atlantic corridors. So if there's a lot behind it that's commercial, that doesn't restrict that lot if it's on a side street or something else. It wouldn't be included in that requirement.
So just for clarification, Bayshore wants to change our zoning to allow a Starbucks across from the potential hotel that may come, may not come. So that means where I think is it Malik Real Estate across from where 600 North, but the timeshare right across the street. That person comes, McDonald's comes in and says, you know what? I know I can put a drive-through across with the new Hard Rock Hotel. I want to buy your parcel for $5 million. I'm going to sell a lot of hamburgers cheaper than Hard Rock. He can put a McDonald's on the north side of Lenox Avenue and A1A now with a drive-through.
No,
Why not?
because it's zoned T2 north of Lenox, and the zoning does not allow
But are
that
we
type
going to
of
change, every
restaurant.
time somebody comes to town, we change the zoning?
That's not the intent here. The
I know
intent
it's
is
not
to
the
just
intent,
change.
But we do it year after year after year, depending on who comes with the biggest check. We change our zoning for every developer that comes to town. We do.
Well, Reed, you're saying that will not happen with respect to the concern based upon what's being proposed, correct?
What's being proposed is a text amendment that affects the T3 properties, the places where an A2 restaurant would be permitted on those lots that are abutting the west side of A1A, the south side of ISB. And you have to have the zoning where it permits that. And right now, the T3 zone, which is located from Lenox towards south to Silver Beach, that stretch right in there would allow it. That area that's T2
Want it.
would not allow it. You could have a general restaurant.
Which is
In
fine.
the T2,
And that's
yeah.
what, and I think that's what the redevelopment boards wanted. We wanted real restaurants. We wanted people that would come to this hotel and live at these places or actually go across the street and eat a decent meal. There's not a, yes, they may be having salads at McDonald's, but those aren't decent meals. And that's what's going to come because that's what's going to be, it's going to be cheap, it's going to be fast, those guys can open in 45 days, and that's what's going to come. I don't think anybody that lives in Lenox, especially me, want to have a McDonald's where the 7-Eleven is now, a Burger King, any hamburger place. We don't want them.
Again, from a overall, in a community perspective, when you're on the beach side, where do you go if you're a tourist, you're someone coming and visiting, or you're a resident, and you're looking for a convenient place from your automobile to drive in and drive through and get something? Where do you go?
You go out to 95.
Okay.
Well,
And
the
that's
mistake.
perfectly fine.
I believe we need that on the beach
Well,
side.
then I think that what needs to happen is I think that the whole Main Street Redevelopment Board needs to open up at the same time then. It shouldn't be just the south side. It should be the whole, bring it back and do your whole.
That's what we're looking at for the next meeting.
For the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Dan. John?
John Nicholson, 413 North Grandview Avenue. I sat through the meetings that they had on this. The major concern is the trash. Like, I have a Burger King like a block from me, and I get their trash in front of me all the time. You get it in the Ocean Walk, you get it on the boardwalk. The trash just permeates. People toss it out the window, people walk and they just drop it. The trash is a major problem. So I understand what he's talking about. Years ago, we had a meeting, I think now it's 12. We had this big discussion on A1A and the heights of the buildings, all right? And it was determined that the higher the building, the more land you own, the higher the building you could be. And there were 2 parcels that you could put buildings taller than 17 stories, only 2. So they passed it saying, well, it's not zoned anywhere else. You cannot do it anywhere else. There's only going to be 2. Well, lo and behold, the county ends up giving away beach approaches. So now that 2 is 7. So we have 7 possibilities for buildings taller than 17 stories. So when somebody tells you it can only be 2 places, it's not necessarily true because things happen, things change. So not necessarily, I'm agreeing that we don't want it anywhere. And then third, the traffic circles that are coming in. They're planning 3 traffic circles, one on Peninsula, one's on A1A and International, and one on Main Street. What's going to happen when the traffic circles go in? Will these help or hurt those to me, god-awful traffic circles. All right? Thank you.
I love traffic circles. I'm
So Reed, I
being
just,
very facetious in that for us.
Reed, just for clarification purposes, for the T4 zoning, it would have to be east of Noble Street on ISB, correct?
In T4,
Yeah.
not Noble Street.
is
If you're
this?
looking for, are we in the South Atlantic area that we're talking about now?
No, okay, there's a street right west of Grandview, and I think it says Noble, where I see the blue line.
That is noble.
In the Main Street redevelopment area? What's the question?
No, in the South Atlantic redevelopment area. Yeah.
Yeah, there's T4
Okay, so it would allow.
in that section.
So it's that small little section between Noble and A1A that it would allow for on ISB on the south side.
Oh, sure. And it would allow that, and it would allow it where the Sharks Lounge
Yeah,
is
so
and
if
that
the
whole
Sharks-
area.
That's what I was going to get to. So if the
Yeah.
Sharks Lounges was bought out, good riddance. Okay, all right.
Those are the redevelopment possibilities.
Right, okay.
All right. Any further public comment? Yes, ma'am? Name and address, please.
Good evening. My name is Susan Bousquet. I live at 600 Lenox Avenue in Daytona Beach, and thanks for the opportunity to speak. I think I have a question more than a comment. From the materials I've read, it had been my understanding that the proposal is to allow these drive-through restaurants on the south side of International Speedway and down along the west side of A1A. Am I incorrect in that?
You're correct that where it's zoned for that, it could be established in that zone. It's not every block of those streets, but it's on parts of those blocks.
And
Is there any way they could put up on the screen?
I think they have it there.
Attachment C,
Sure.
which is the redevelopment.
Can you bring
map.
that up, please?
And the blue, or in this case, the green, is T4 and T3 and T4 would be that green area that's right there on ISB and A1A, that darker green. It's the darker green. And the darker green that's across from the Hard Rock Hotel, which is the red.
Right.
But
And-
nothing in between the Hard Rock Hotel and that other darker green.
because it was my further understanding that the impetus, or at least one impetus for this discussion, was a request from the developers of the Hard Rock who've expressed a desire to place a Starbucks or Starbucks-like place
Yes,
in the
ma'am.
property that they own on the west side of A1A. I was trying to understand if they own 800 feet of property along A1A, why are we considering changing zoning for that whole stretch of A1A?
It's not the whole stretch. It's really just those areas right across and up near ISB, if I'm correct.
To the south side.
Yeah.
Which
And-
is on that map.
It's the south side of ISB up to where Lennox to, I believe, what is that? What's the whole span of the? Lennox to Boswick.
Wait. Do you have a pointer, Reed?
Yes.
Just point it on that map so she.
I don't know if you, can you see that
Yes.
little red dot?
Yes.
Okay. There's Lennox right there.
Yes.
And this area that travels down this way allows for the restaurants, if this were to get approved.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And that little area way up to the north as well.
That's along
Right,
ISB.
right up here at the intersection of ISB and Atlantic.
And I'll try to wrap up quickly because I'm sensitive to your
It's okay.
distress.
It's okay.
I would like you to please be very sensitive and very mindful of the treasure that we have on the beach side, that is Lenox Park. We have residents who gather there every day. Children go there, families go there, soccer players gather there, lots of dog walkers there. So I just ask that you be mindful of the impact on Lenox Park. I moved here from Atlanta. I spent a year and a half making trips from Atlanta to Daytona Beach. And although I looked in Ormond and South Daytona and Port Orange and Daytona Beach shores, I kept coming back to the Lenox Park neighborhood. It is a treasure, so please be mindful of that. And then my final comment is simply to reinforce and echo, I believe it was Mr. Nicholson who made a comment about the trash. We live on Lenox Park and we walk or bike on the beach every day, and we've formed the habit of bringing a plastic bag with us. And we fill plastic bags with trash just in the little stretch that we walk. And I shudder to think about the French fry wrappers and hamburger wrappers that will exacerbate what's already a real eyesore, a real problem.
Hopefully, it's going to be a Starbucks, and that they're a little more considerate.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Any board comments or questions?
I move for approval.
Yeah, I think we already have a motion and a
Yeah.
second, don't we?
Let me just, after all, but I'm a little vague, just to reiterate, we're talking about from the street, Noble Street, east to ISB, south to Braddock, was it, is what we're talking about in the area?
Yes.
Okay. That's all I want to know.
Okay.
And then south of Lenox to Boston,
Yeah,
Right.
to Boston.
which is old, historic.
I call the question.
Okay, all right. No further board discussion? All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Passes. All right, I believe I was trying to mention a few moments ago with respect to special events, as I'm feeling miserable and we're fairly depleted in members, that we move that to the December meeting. Can we have a motion and a second on that?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Thank you. Read any further redevelopment projects update?
Only to let you know, the limo cycle's going through some training with the police next week, and then they'll be out and about.
How many limo cycles
There'll
are we
be
going to-
2 of them now,
Okay.
so,
Where are they based?
well, as of today, it appears that they'll be located and based out of the back of the band shell. They can't go on the boardwalk, but it appears they're gonna be operating from there while they try to secure some storage, a storage facility in the area.
So that has nothing to do with the gentleman on the big corner of Hollywood, the old gas station, he has the pay cabs.
Yeah, there's no relationship.
Okay. Does that do it?
That's it.
Okay. Board comments. Teresa?
No, thank you.
Other than the fact that, obviously with the concern of the neighborhoods from, Grandview to Lenox, I think the whole gist of what they're trying to say is that you don't want a fast food restaurant in there. So I think maybe we should really, if I'm not on this board or any from future board members, maybe we should kind of make a note to maybe be kind of really critical on what type of walk-up restaurants that we allow in that corridor.
Why don't we think about that as we come back to the issue in the broader context? Maybe we can address any concerns at that time. Okay?
And concerning that, I mean, I just think the negatives that deal with drive-throughs we can handle through the ordinances versus if it's the, I'm sure that, if it's the noise of the intercoms, there's decibel levels, there's after midnight, we could have them shut down, what have you. If it's the lights from the headlights, we could make sure there's screening devices to where they don't go into the people's homes or what have you. I mean, there's ways to handle the negatives. And the positives is we look like crap, okay? And we're going to see a lot of development happen as a result of it. So, I mean, there's now on another issue, this is something that I want to pass around for everybody. You just look around, because we did have a project today that was tabled to the future. And obviously the main issue there happens to be the lack of parking. Now, years ago, Jerry Langston, your predecessor, had an idea that was floated around. And what that is when you have a development, and let's say the development requires 12 parking spaces, in lieu of having the 12 parking spaces on site, many cities have instituted a program where if you figure out that building a parking garage, the average cost of and I believe I talked to Paul McKittrick, who mentioned the average cost per space is $15,000 currently. If you have that as the figure, and let's say somebody is required to have 10 spaces as a result of this new development, and he chooses, in lieu of having that 10 spaces on site, to pay into a fund, which then could go towards providing public parking at the cost of 10 times $15,000, $150,000. This is something other cities are doing, and it could actually, in the future, you could actually see a parking garage get built with some down money coming from the private sector, to where the garage could actually be in the black, you know? It's something to think about. It's something that I actually hope that we consider, because there's going to be we're looking at, we want to see Daytona grow. We want to see, we all know that there's a parking issue in the Main Street redevelopment area, and we all want to address that parking issue. Maybe this is something that, I mean, I'm telling you, this is not my idea. I'm bringing it to the table, but Jerry Langston had this idea years ago. Now, whether I like the guy or not is a different story, but it was his idea, so I will credit him, okay?
I don't think it was original, but I think it does have definite possibilities, so.
Yeah. So
something to keep in mind.
I went online, I got this. Now, this happens to be for the Boston area and what have you, but it says a lot of the things that we talked about. In a more intense, requiring the use of separate parking facility can degrade the pedestrian environment, limit density, and encourage drivers to drive from one side to the next, rather than parking once and walking in between nearby destinations, which is what we're trying to do for that area. So
I agree.
So I think this is something consultants should be looking at, or we should be looking at.
Yeah, we agree, and it's in our E-zone master plan as well. So this provision is in there to encourage us to look at that.
Why don't we have something that brought to us so we could establish a rate and move on? I mean, these ideas need to be implemented. You know, let's get, because like, for instance, the project, and we're not talking about this now, it's been tabled, but obviously there's a parking issue with a project that is being tabled to next month. Had we had this in place, it might be, okay, how many parking spaces, and really, the number that staff says 7 is not that, but it should be more for an intense, activity like that. But the point is that it would be nice to have a mechanism to where we could, as a board, say, okay, well, if you escrow or pay into to this fund, and obviously the city will be limited towards the use of that fund to go towards the parking garage.
Reed, do you think we could, in a couple of months, put this on the agenda and have an informed discussion on possibilities?
Yeah, I think we can put it on. we've got a couple items here for at least discussion coming up. So.
Okay.
What's the consensus of the board? Do you like something like this? I mean, so that way at least we're giving.
I think it's a great idea, you know? I think it's a concept where we need to minimize the requirement for on-site parking, or, I mean, that they provide it right there and get a pooled parking, because that's the way every other municipality area does it, and we should be operating as a downtown type area that does it that way. So, you know, maybe we can work something, and maybe that'll be something we can get the county interested into and such. So I say we take a serious look.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
And I'll-
everybody's nodding affirmatively, so
Okay.
we'll get it on the agenda.
I'll cut my comments short, but.
I like that.
Sorry. Good thing we're short meeting. Reed, I just have one quick comment, and I'm not positive about it, but when I was coming back into town last Friday around 5:30, I go to pull up on ISB, and the ISB bridge going beachside is shut down. And I think it was for a 5K, someone said. All right?
That was a nightmare. There was the Food and Wine Festival at the News Journal, the Greek Festival, whatever the thing at the Ocean Center.
9,000 women.
Yeah, and then the marathon, you couldn't, I was literally landlocked. I couldn't move anywhere.
And Reed, I love athletic events. I've been to them all over the country and the world and support them big time. But never, the only time I've ever seen them shut down a major thoroughfare is the Ironman World Championship in Kona, okay? And here on a Friday night, we saw fit to shut down the entire beachside, going across ISB Bridge at peak period when we had all these events going on, and there was literally, it was 9,000 women going to the Ocean Center. Okay, now a lot of them were already in the hotels, but there was an awful lot coming from Orlando and Central Florida and such driving in to that event. And I'm sure it had to be total chaos. I know when I pulled up, I'm like, why is the traffic all backed up? So first off, I'm sorry, but the foolishness of doing that at a peak period, and then the double foolishness of closing the entire thing, maybe one lane I could handle. But we also have that entire shoulder on the side of it, and there's no reason you can't do a run on that protected shoulder along the side of the bridge. It was just a run, unless there was 5,000 people running en masse. I just think that was utterly poor planning, and just wanted to pass that on.
Thank you. I didn't know that, so now I do, and I'll speak to the people who handle that.
Yeah, I thought there was a major accident when I pulled up, because there's all these barricades and all this stuff going off, and
I think it's just too many events all planned at the same time.
well, even if the Ocean Center thing wasn't going off, but to close, you know, the main thoroughfare into town, into the beachside, to close it off totally and direct people to the two bridges, there's no reason to do a run that way. There's just absolutely none. So my 2 cents worth on that. And with that being the last of the comments, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you.
Those runners, you know.
They're terrible.
I love runners. I love triathlons.
No, I was telling him, I'd never heard of that on a Friday evening.
Me neither. Normally it's, Sunday morning when I'm trying to get to the office, I can't.